Hello NFL fans and welcome back to NFL UK Ops, American football, British accents. We've got another fantastic show for you today. We take a look at Thursday night's game, trouble at the Cowboys, and is the Brady bunch getting cancelled? Mr. Irrelevant's got a bee in his bonnet about Lamar Jackson. And we have Claire de Bear, who will share some funny stories of her meeting some of the NFL superstars. So let's get started. But before we do, make sure you hit it like Henry and spike it like Gronk. Here's the NFL Weekly Roundup. This week's Thursday Night Football saw the Chiefs come out on top. The Chargers dominated the first half as the Chiefs' offense struggled. The Chiefs fought back in the second half, and the decisive play of the game was a 99-yard interception return by Watson, which really swung the game in the Chiefs' favour. And even though the Chargers made a late comeback attempt, they fell just short. And some highlights from the games for us. Did you see the Derwin James spinebuster move on Kelsey? And an amazing one-handed touchdown grab by Chargers wide receiver Mike Williams. And a maths lesson for you guys, 1 buttock equals 2 feet. In other news, Week 1 brought about the Union and revenge games. Joe Flacco floundered against his former team as the Ravens dominated the Jets. And Baker Mayfield may have temporarily been off the leash, but ultimately was neutered by the Browns. For years, the Seattle fans demanded to let Russ cook. However, this week, the Seahawks cooked Russ and the Broncos. The Cowboys are in all sorts of trouble after Dak required surgery on his throwing hand. Originally, it was expected that Dak would be out for 6 to 8 weeks. However, they received some positive news and the Cowboys have decided to not put Dak on injured reserves, which means he could only miss 4 weeks. The team have got crucial games over the next 4 weeks, facing the Bengals, Giants, Commanders and Rams. They could quite easily find themselves 0-5 by the time Dak does get back. We heard that after the Buccaneers game, owner Jerry Jones was doing a whip round to see if he could raise $251 million to get Lamar Jackson. He's even set up a GoFundMe page. And finally, ball or bunch him. There's trouble in the Brady household. Apparently, Giselle is unhappy with Tom coming out of retirement, and reportedly the couple haven't been living together for quite some time. We know it must have been a tough decision to choose this over this. And that was this week in the NFL. And just to let you know that this episode is brought to you in partnership with UK American Sports Store. For all your US sports merchandise, visit ukAmericansportstore.co.uk. All merchandise comes straight from the US, which means it's top quality. And the winner of our NFL Cap competition is 4th and Flex Pod. Well done, guys. All you need to do is contact UK American Sports Store on Twitter to claim your prize. And next we have Claire de Bear, who tells some funny stories about meeting NFL superstars. Make sure that you follow Claire de Bear on Twitter at ClaireDeBear85. And this week she has a fantastic Panthers giveaway.
I bumped into Odell Beckham Jr. out while there wasn't an NFL thing on. He was just out in London shopping and I saw him in New Era and I was just like, and I didn't have anything for him to sign. He was in New Era. They didn't have any Giants hats. I was like, oh my God, so I panicked. So I bought an iPad cover. So I got him to sign an iPad cover that I gave away, I think last season before last. So that went down a treat. But one of my favourite players that I've had a interaction with, which would be at a NFL UK live event, Matt Forte was here, and anyone who tells you that I burst into tears while meeting Matt Forte is lying. I became very, very close to crying, but I didn't cry. But also who was with him was a gentleman for the Eagles called Ron Jakowski, and I can never get my name. It's such a, you're like, how is that your surname? But anyway, and he's on the stage with Neil. There's these other players and they're playing what they call chuck it in a bucket, and they get people from the audience to come on and whatnot, and they pick some people and they always pick a kid, and obviously the kid's the ringer and they want the kid to win, and there's a line on the floor and everyone stands behind and if you get to do this and you get called pick Neil, I know everyone wants to play with the players, and Neil is always the last to get picked. And I have been picked, and the joke was I went last and I got Neil. Neil's really good. Genuinely good at it. So surprise everyone and back Neil. When we did it, he was the only person to hit the bucket out of the thing. But obviously this kid throws and whatnot. And Ron slowly sliding up past this lot and getting closer and closer to the bucket, where everyone was like, no, behind the line. And so I'm like, Ron, behind the line. And so he turns around and went, who's that escaped mental patient? Sort of thing. So then there's a bit of banter back and forth, and if you haven't seen, we might be able to put a link to it. There's a Yahoo YouTube video that goes around, and it's a bit more of my story, and if you want to follow, we'll drop a link somewhere. And I meet Ron while I'm recording this with Yahoo Sports in Wembley, and he stops the entire production for us to chat for a good 12 minutes about, he signed some stuff and whatnot. I just walked out, and the Yahoo group were like, the players know who you are. I'm like, yeah, you called me to do this, remember? I didn't call you guys. Yahoo Sports, you called me, sort of thing. And I was on the One show, and I knew I was going on as a backup guest, sort of thing. They were like, we've got something else planned, but it's so loosely planned, Claire, that if we could have you in the building, that would be great. And the other thing happened, and the Wembley Stallions were there, and they got some beautiful coverage and some stuff, and it was lovely. Literally just before COVID hit, it was the Super Bowl before that all kicked off, and I get walked through the studio, and there's Wembley, and we've got to be behind the cameras and good and quiet, and the Pet Shop Boys there and whatnot, and Jason and Osi are there, and Jason and Osi are like, hi Claire, and the Wembley Stallions, like, they know shit, yeah, you know. So I have had things like that happen, and you know, I will tweet if I'm Channel 5 and whatnot to NJD. You know, he still thinks there's a billion Jags fans out there, and I did a short. They wanted me to do a video clip, which they ran, and they literally get a reply like, you know, he thinks there's a billion Jags fans out there, and he's like, yes, I did, you know. So it's having those fun little interactions, and then I get to tell that story, and that's the thing I love. The autograph, as much as I've got it, that's not for me. You know, I've had the nice thing. I want you to have the thing that's got the value, because I've had the sparkly experience. You know, Sean Gale signed the inside of my Bears head. I have not worn my full costume because it can be quite noisy on a microphone and whatnot, but I've got a big Rappers chain, and I went Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, called me up and went, oh, can you come down and do it? I'm like, yes, okay. And like, it was like literally just, the Bears had just, it was a crazy week, you know. I do wish the NFL would call me up before, you know, 3 hours before anything, but anyway. So I'm like, yeah, I'll come down and do this. And I'd had a thing with Keem Hicks and whatnot, but Charles Tillman was there with, who was it for the Raiders? Jim Plunkett. And none of the Bears fan wanted Jim, and you're like, Jim Plunkett's a 2-time Super Bowl winning, you know, like, and so all these Bears fans are handing me Jim. I come back with like 7 autographs of Jim Plunkett's because none of the Bears fans recognize. I'm like, yoink, I'll have as many of them as you want to hand out, sort of thing. But so Charles Tillman signs, I take a mini helmet to my, we've given them away, and I think I might have the card still in there. But he signs my Rappers chain. He's a giant 3-year-old. The man who's an FBI agent couldn't control his Sharpie for 30. You stood next to him, he signed salute to service jerseys, you know, whatever. If you stood still long enough, he was going to scribble on you, and he did.
And more from Claire later, where she explains how she became big buddies with Keem Hicks. And now, it's Mr. Irrelevant.
So Lamar Jackson has turned down an extension deal of $250 million. He shows incredible confidence in himself. Man, you after Sunday's performance, I'm not surprised. It creates an immense pressure to perform, especially after last year. He did a career worst of 13 interceptions and a career high of 5 games missed. Just imagine though, if every incomplete the offer goes down 5 million, every sack 10 million, every interception 50 million. But why not take it? Has he had another offer he can't talk about? Has somebody been tampering with Lamar? We're looking at you, the Dolphins. Lamar's 25, right? So $250 million without interest is still $9,000 a day until he's 100. Unless he's got a gambling problem, a drugs problem, or a Funko Pop addiction, he should be fine. Or he could just buy this yacht, then he'd have to get a part-time job at Burger King. We know the real reason he hasn't signed is because only 133 million of it is guaranteed on signing. Still, that's nearly 5,000 a day without interest. If I was him, I'd take the money, tuck it under my arm and run. Something that Lamar's quite good at, actually. Anyway, back to Neil Reynolds.
I don't know what you mean, Andy. More from Claire.
I'd been to a couple of things where Keem Hicks had come in the summer and I got pulled aside to meet him and whatnot. And that I tweeted out to NFL UK, like, I'm here ready. And it was something like 8 hours before. They hadn't even put the stickers up in the window for this thing. And I'm ready. They haven't even got the barriers up. And so I get there and I get pulled aside and whatnot. And he's not there. And I'm like, oh, well. And what I do, if I get pulled aside to these things, I'm really only there for the autograph. I know there are other people. I'm going to probably get this opportunity again, but there's someone who's only going to meet their Jags player once, or the Bucks kicker, or whoever. So I get out the way. You fill your boots. I will just shove something under their face for them to sign as they go out. And hear him come, Keem Hicks come down the corridor, who sounds like Santa Claus, by the way. I'm so sad he's left us, but I want him to do well. And he says, "You crazy bitch, you've been out there 8 hours. I could have flown to Chicago from here." So he said, and I'm quite a big girl, so if I give you a hug, I hug you, you get hugged. But he's so big, he hugged me, and I was like, oh, this is nice. This is what being hugged feels like, sort of thing. And then that was in July. That goes past, the Bears fly out for the Bears-Raiders game. And I'm up at 4 o'clock in the morning, try and get to Heathrow Airport. And I set the rule that, Friday was going to be for Claire. And then Saturday and Sunday had to be Swag and everyone else. I have to cover, it's not fair, but Friday for Claire, then game on for everyone else. So I get, and I've got a white ball, and the Bears come off, and they've flown a long flight, and they are not obligated to sign anything. And I want to make that very clear. Waiting for a player, they are not paid to sign stuff unless you're at a signing. Anything they hand out free or that the NFL do is of their own discretion. Be nice about it, and also be ready with a pen and whatnot. It makes a huge difference. That's why I don't get a lot of pictures. I'd rather get the thing signed, and then I know if I only get something signed, there's the one person at the back who, because I didn't get a picture, gets something signed. So no one's signing, and Akeem's like, Claire, because obviously so he's pushing players up to the right. You go sign something for her, and so I've got this ball signed by like 8 other players, which was beautiful. So I'm like, yeah. So cut to Saturday, I go off to this thing, and I had to make a choice. If I went to New Era, I could get another Bears player, but I knew if I stayed at Tottenham, I would get a Raiders player as well, which was fair. And it's like, no, you've got to cover both team players. And what was really nice, I got someone knew that I missed out at New Era, and at this Christmas just gone, I got a trading card signed by him because I missed out on this, which I just thought was really big. They're like, Claire, for so much lovely thing, and they're like, this isn't swag, this is really this swag was, if I want to make sure, because I never want to cream anything off. So we do this thing, and if you've been to the Tottenham State, it's beautiful, go and do it. And if you cannot afford to do a game this year, so it's a credit, it'd be tough for everyone out there. Try and do the Tottenham tour whilst it's the NFL tour, because it is beautiful and it's definitely worth doing. But I go around, do this thing, and we just had Charles Tillman and Jim Plunkett, and we get told there's other 2 players coming, but we don't know who the 2 players are. And it comes out and it's announced that it's going to be Keem Hicks and Clinton Dix. And where I am, there's like 8 other people in front of me, and I'm at the top of the stairs, so I'm quite prominent. And he comes round and he sees me and he's like, Claire, you nut. And I'm not stalking you. I promise you, I'm not stalking you. So he's all laughing. And the PR woman's like, you know, one thing signed and one thing or a picture. They're very, very hot on it. And he's telling the 8 other people in front, he's telling, oh, I know Claire. And you're like, oh my God, why is he telling this story? And then he gets to me, and they didn't have any, they usually have, where is it? Oh, there, I've put it safe. If I've got a drink out, they're kept miles away from each other. We're very, so they usually have cards like this signed, ready to go, but there was a muck-up at the printers and they didn't have anything. So, they were signing hats and anything like the day programs and whatnot, but I had a couple of dollars. I always have them ready to go. So I get these dollars ready, and he says to Clinton Dix, he's like, make sure you sign 2 for her. You do 2 for her, sort of thing. And as I'm doing, he grabs my wrist, and his hat, like, he could have grabbed my head with his, you know, he picks up watermelons with one hand. He's a big man. And he's like, one of those is for you, Claire. I don't want to see that being given away. That second one's for you. And it's in the cabinet, and I daren't give it away. But Keem Hicks finds out that I gave the autograph of another player that he got done, or just on the off chance. So that has to stay here forever. I have to be buried with that because Keem Hicks says so. And no one be messing with that, man.
So please check out Claire de Bear on Twitter, at Claire de Bear 85. She does amazing giveaways and does so much for the NFL community, so give her a follow. And now it's time to announce the winner of this Miami Dolphins mini helmet. And the winner is Anthony Hobson. Congratulations. All you need to do is send us a DM on Twitter and we'll get this prize sent right to you. It's always tough to choose the winners in week 1 in the NFL, but here's our prediction leaderboard. And it's a poor start for Mr. Irrelevant, who shocked the world actually last year and won the competition. And here's our predictions for week 2. And a special shout out to Britsburg Owen for having me on his show this week. Make sure you check out that video. The link is up here. We break down the Steelers and Patriots matchup this weekend. So make sure that you subscribe to Britsburg Owen on YouTube and follow him on Twitter. And this week I'll be live on Monday Talks, where we'll be discussing the upcoming games. And we'll leave you with this top tip. If you want to avoid a $5,000 fine in the NFL, make sure you wear your big boy pants.